Welcome back to Pitch Perfect Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Arun Bagaria, co-founder and CEO of TravClan. Welcome, Arun.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sanjay.
And most of us in the travel industry know about TravClan. And I heard a lot of new things are happening in TravClan these days. So just for everyone, can you explain, what you do and especially what new things are happening in TravClan?
Sure, Sanjay. So essentially, we are a B2B travel company, right? What we do is we allow travel partners, be it travel agents or OTAs, to buy flights, hotels, and holidays using TravClan. We just launched our Volt API. Through this, the idea is, large travel companies, be it OTAs or B2B travel partners across the world, can integrate our flights and hotels and holidays API and start selling travel. So that's one of the key updates. We are building a lot of things, innovative features, and bringing it to the audience.
Recently, we also announced Travel Connections 25 happening in Delhi, jointly organized by Vervotech and TravClan. So when I met Arun and I talked about this event, he also acknowledged the need of an event, but with a very perspective. Let's start with your views on why you thought there is a huge need of something like Travel Connections which we're doing.
Yeah, Sanjay, so like you said, right, I think the way industry is shaping up, right, there are a lot of events which allow travel fraternity to come together and exchange ideas. But when it comes to travel and technology in India or in the region, I think there is very little dialogue which is happening. So more than dialogue, what is missing and what I see as an opportunity is for companies to collaborate with each other. And there are various aspects of this collaboration. So when we first spoke about, Travel Connections, what I saw is that through these events, companies can come together, and instead of just exchanging business cards, which tends to happen over a 3-day event like SATE or an OTM, it could be a platform where we can discuss the key issues which are happening in the industry. That's number one. Number two, what I saw is that it is perhaps the best platform where instead of, looking at other partners which work in the industry as competitors, we come together to identify and to start discussing and addressing the key challenges that are facing. So I think that's what is exciting about Travel Connections. The fact that, we are keeping it focused on technology and the way technology is shaping up. We all see it very clearly. So I think that is what is exciting.
Beautiful. And like you said, I think you mentioned two very important points here. Let's start with the first one. You said travel as an industry needs to come together, and as a community we need to do certain things beyond sharing our numbers or beyond just being a connection for business. Can you elaborate more on in terms of how do you look at community, how this is going to help the ecosystem, how this is going to help businesses, or any examples or any pain points of not having a stronger community from a travel tech standpoint?
Right. See, I think travel tech has been around for close to a couple of decades now. But at a global level or even at a region level, firstly, there is no one body which is representing the views of the travel industry. And what this is leading to is that whenever any changes do come in or any new government policy changes happen, everyone talks about it amongst themselves, but very rarely there is any action taken by the industry as a whole, right? One very small example of this is something like TCS, which got recently implemented in India for overseas packages, right? While that is the correct move from a government standpoint, there are lots of operation challenges in implementing this, which we as an industry have not done a good job in representing our views to the various authorities. And what we've not done is taking the right steps as a group to implement these in our businesses, right? So TCS is one such example. But when we sort of zoom out at various opportunities, right? Like the way, let's say, various things from a technology standpoint are evolving, right? Today, what is happening is that every player has its own different, APIs, standards, and so on and so forth. But very little work is happening at the infrastructure level to bring various players on a single platform. It doesn't have to necessarily mean from a business perspective, but from sharing ideas and making things easier for other businesses to build on top, right? I think these two are foremost important for having a community which comes together.
Yeah, rightly said. And I think a lot of global travel tech players like Expedia, Hotelbeds, Webbeds, all of these guys have been focusing a lot on India. And I do see when we talk to them, and when some government policy changes happens, and and there are challenges, like TCS is one example, or collecting the PAN card is the other example. Of course, the reasoning and the intent is perfect, but how those things should be rolled out, and all those things should be a much better influenced by the travel community, because they are the one who understand the ground reality. This question I often get from global bed banks as well, that why you guys are not working with the government. So very well said. So community part I understand, but I think the community part is closely related with the competition part, right? If you look at it, the one perspective of some of the new businesses is that I don't compete with anyone. The most common perspective is I compete with everyone. So how do you look at how do you look at competition? How do you look at these people who are competing in one way, may not be competing in another way, but how do you come together as a competition? So I would love to hear your views on how do you look at first competition, who you look at competition as an example, and then how people who are competing with each other can come together and do certain things which are beneficial to everyone.
Right. So Sanjay, I'll answer, perhaps you answered the first part of my question, that how do I look at competition? See, I think as TravClan, right, we also tend to go by this adage that we are not necessarily competing with one particular
that's
company.
The first kind of company,
Right.
so you belong to that. Okay.
Yeah. But the way I look at it is, eventually, right, all of us are working for the same set of customers, right? And in that sense, yes, because we pitch our products to a same set of customers, be it a travel agent, be it a hotel or an end customer, we are competing in some sense. But I think when you think about competition, or when one should think about competition, they should realize that there are various aspects to it, right? So the traditional mindset in which people have been looking at competition has just been that, if my salesperson or my ad is visible to a particular customer and there is a competing ad, Google Ads is the easiest example, that you search for a name of a particular company and you see the competitor's ad right on top. That is one way in which competition can be defined, right? But I think one needs to take a broader look, right? Like when you think about competition, it's not about necessarily competing on the price, right? It's about trying to take a step back, zooming out, and trying to see that what are you really trying to build, right? And that is where the lines between competition and collaboration sort of start opening up, right? The way I look at it is that if you start investing in training your team, you do not have to think about hiring from your competition. That's one very simple way, we believe at TravClan that, we should always keep investing in training our team members, right? If that is something which we are good at, we will let go of the traditional mindset that if we have to expand quickly, we should hire from, similar companies which are doing similar things. So when you start adopting such practices, hiring and building team is one such example. Do you really think of what the customer really wants, or do you think of this is a feature or this is a product which my contemporary has launched, I should copy it, right? That is when you start, instead of going in a simple one-to-one direct competition, you start creating your own route. And that's when, if the other company also sees that, you're trying to do your own things while we both go to the same customer, then opportunities of collaboration starts opening up. That's at least how I look at, competition. Coming to collaboration, right? I think, because we are in the B2B travel industry, and even in, for that matter, B2C industry, what I've seen is that generally companies are very open to working with another company, provided they see that the other business is also ethical and is making sure that they are not adopting any malpractices with respect to data, with respect to customer reach out and things like these. So I think building those internal safeguards and checks that can allow a company to leverage, partnerships within the industry.
Yeah, beautiful. And I completely agree with you. So, and I cannot say probably TravClan is a startup anymore. TravClan is a big name. Everyone knows. You guys have grown a lot in last few years. But these competitors coming together and collaborating on certain problems. What I have seen is in any industry, typically there are some big players who does some monopoly, and I would not say it's a monopoly, but there is a competitive advantage of larger players doing certain things much more efficiently, where the startups, and because I strongly believe a lot of innovation happens in startup like ChatGPT, of course, Microsoft, Google, these so big companies, right? But a lot of innovation always happened in startups, and that's why startup needs to be supported. But there is always a shortage of, I would say, data, or shortage of I would say shortage of tech solutions and so on. How in this collaboration, startups which are competitor to each other can come together and do certain things where they get that advantage which is already there with the larger brands or multinational brands. Any such examples in your mind, where
Yeah.
something like this can be done?
Yeah. So great question, right, Sanjay? See, I think one needs to realize that, like you said, that when you're a large player, you've built a competitive advantage over a period of time, right? I think that every business wants to build. But what we also need to remember is that when it comes to change, right, like, or innovation, it is constant. As a business owner or as a business leader, one should focus on making sure that, they're focused on providing more value to the customer. And one needs to sort of realize that if they will not innovate, someone else will innovate faster, better. Obviously, distribution matters, but if you're sort of left behind, you will get left behind, right? A simple example over here is that, a lot of times as a company, right, we come across certain, it's a very small percentage, but it does happen, where, there are certain unethical parties which adopt some malpractices. It could just be very simple, like, somebody who's doing a credit card fraud, right, on your platform, right? Now, over a period of time, what I've come to realize is that it is those few handful of travel partners which are, they found out one loophole on, implemented that on TravClan, and it's very likely that they implemented it on other platforms as well. Now, if we could have a mechanism where we could share this data, right, it would mean better for everyone, right? Another example, that a recent one that comes to my mind, is got to do with, visa, right? We have, all of us in the industry know that, visa rules keep evolving, and every country which keeps evolving those rules wants to make sure that there is only valid immigrants in their particular country, right? But what ends up happening is that few certain unethical agents adopt a practice, and it causes financial loss to the large players because there's no sharing, right? Like, it's very likely that if an agent had 10 cases of customers of his going to a particular country and not coming back on your platform, it's very likely that that same agent has 10 more on another platform, right? So I think these are cases where, data protection, customer fraud, financial fraud, all of these are areas where, as an industry, we need to collaborate together, right? This is something which is, if you take fintech as an example, right, a lot of companies in the insurance space are coming together. Government is talking about this, where there are changes which are coming in to ensure there is more reliability in terms of financial transactions happening. So this, I think, is a particular area where definitely the industry needs to collaborate together.
Yeah, beautiful. This is amazing example, and everyone, Arun has summarized very well. With the examples where we can all come together, collaborate with each other, create a strong community, and that's what we are starting with the Travel Connections 25. So looking forward to, of course, see you all there. So Arun, moving on to technology, because and TravClan has been a tech-first or tech-enabled travel company. You guys did very well. Everyone understand the need of technology. Everyone understand the importance of technology. And there are tech platforms as well out in the market who does the different kind of technology. Like at Vervotech we do mapping. There are booking engine companies. There are expense management companies. There are CRMs and so on. One thing what I see when I talk to customers, that there is always so there is this larger question about the cost of technology. Okay, the technology is very expensive, and of course, as I said, with all these platforms, third party providers, you can actually have technology with a cheaper cost, but then the challenges is you have limitations. So first is you will have same technology with like everyone else, and at the same time uh, you cannot build some specific things if you're your own ideas. You will be on the mercy of technology provider in a way, right?
Right.
If you go and try to build everything in house, technology is super expensive. It's not that easy.
Right.
Travel is great, business, but the margins are when you do volume, because
Right.
technology is very very expensive if you try to do everything in house.
Right.
And this is the common question come to every business, that what they do, how do they have their technology strategy which kind of align with their business.
Right.
With your success of being a tech driven being a tech driven travel business, can you share how you handled it? Have you faced all these challenges, or with funding you just had enough money and you built everything, or how was your tech journey, and how you handled all these challenges and questions which are typically to everyone?
Sure. So I think, Sanjay, like you said, right, like the challenges apply to everyone, and it applies to us no matter how much money we go on to raise, right? Uh, the way we look at it, right, like when it comes to technology, eventually, my simplest understanding is technology is supposed to, you know, improve the lives of the user, right? Make things simpler for them, convenient, be it whatever that you're trying to achieve for your particular business use case. So one single thought process or approach, I would say, rather than thought process, we've sort of adopted at TravClan is we'll always try to follow whatever allows us to go faster to the market when we are trying to test something out, or when we are trying to go grow a particular business. Uh, Simplest example of this is when we actually started TravClan. We actually, our first website was built on a third-party platform, right? And we discovered the particular website on a Friday, and by Sunday we had the website up and running, right? So it was that easy, right? Like the best part about good products and good technology is that because you don't have to wait, you can you can see your ideas come to life very very quickly, right? And today with AI, with lot of innovative features coming in, this has become a lot more simpler, right? Uh, so that's how we started, and even today we continue to work with other partners. We don't try and say that we'll do everything in house, right? Um, Everyone uses either an AWS or a GC, like a Google Cloud or an Azure, right? So you're not going to build everything in-house anyways. You're going to use a payment gateway, right? So the simplest question a business owner should ask, or even a product leader should ask themselves, is that what is core to your business, right? Whatever is core to your business, I think that's best kept in-house. Whatever is not core, you could work with third parties, right? And the way I look at it is, instead of looking at it as a linear buy or a build scenario, or should I work with a third party or should I do it in-house? Instead of looking at it as a linear function, businesses need to start looking at it as a spectrum, right? So you could start with a third party, you could start with a ready-made tool. It may not be customized to your particular needs, but that's okay, right? One thing which, from a product perspective, everyone sort of knows but forgets is that 80% of your users use 10 or 20% of your features, right? So the remaining 80% you could do without it, right? If the overall value proposition is great. So what I strongly believe in is that you could build, the best 5G or 6G network in the world, but if you have only 5 subscribers, it's not practically of a lot of business value, right? So on that same spectrum, technology is important, distribution is equally important. What third-party tools allow you to do is have a product which allows you to go to market, get real feedback from customers. I think that is super critical. Once you have that feedback, if customers are happy, nothing like it, great. Just continue going forward, right? Focus on business, focus on solving those challenges which the current tools are not able to do. When you reach a point where you're not able to scale with the current tool, I think that's 6 months before that or 3 months before that. That's when you should think about investing in your own technology. That's how I look at it, and that's an area where I think travel as an industry, right, can come together in terms of what we were discussing, in terms of collaborating, right? So, rather than looking at it as a linear function, should I just use a third party or should I just try and do everything in house? I think people need to adopt a more broader view.
So this is great, right? And so let's assume with this, the travel agency has identified their tech strategy. They are building some things in house, maybe using some third parties and all of it. The second fear, which is very common, is technology is changing so fast. And with the change in technology, there is a fear that if I build something today, I'm spending a lot of money, it may be irrelevant in the next few years. So when I'm building my tech strategy or technology, what are the things, how should you plan things to make sure that, your technology doesn't become obsolete in few years, or what's the strategy here, given the given the changing technology landscape as well as business landscape?
Yeah, great question, Sanjay, right? I think every business needs to realize that when it comes to making decisions, right, decisions are not necessarily made from fear, but from taking a long-term view, right? So when we look at technology, I think there are two aspects to this. First aspect is, what is the architecture that you're choosing? Because, various things will evolve, but, the architecture becoming obsolete, this takes a technology shift happening, which takes, let's say, 4 to 5 years or even longer, right? And the second thing, what we spoke about earlier, is that you need to focus on what the customer is really looking for, right? Be it any business, be it travel, or be it just ordering groceries, right? Customers always opt for whatever is more convenient, is giving them better quality or better service for a given price, right? Or whatever is cheaper. So, one cannot really say that if I'm investing in technology today, it is surely going to A, work, or B, not going to get obsolete in the next few years. Uh, I would tell business owners that, try and answer the reverse question. Because of this fear, you cannot really say that, you're not going to invest in tech. A lot of people like cars, but you cannot really buy a car and then say you'll drive it only if you're really sure that the car will not get scratched, right? That's not the way, one lives their lives. So when it comes to, making decisions, one needs to realize that because the change is constant, one needs to try and see that what works for the customer and what allows you to fulfill their needs faster, right? And that's where technology has a role to play, and that's where collaboration can really help.
Yeah, so I think you summarized very well, and I think these are the very basic and common questions, I think which are there with the every travel agency owners. Your answers are, as they say, the best learning is experience, and I hope this from Arun's TravClan's experience is very helpful to all the people who are building the similar businesses at this point of time. So, moving on from technology, Arun, and we are saying this is a golden era of travel. Let's start with why you think or how this is a golden era of travel.
It is, for sure, Sanjay, right? Like, just look at, in India, look at people around us. They are traveling so much more than earlier, right? I started working in the travel industry 10 years back. I used to think that was the golden era. But today I'm quite sure that now is the golden era, right? Like when we look at, the stats, right? Like today, roughly 30 million Indians are traveling abroad. In the next 5 years, this is going to go to 100 million, right? Today, everyone in our office wants to, take their first international trip in the next 6 months to 12 months, right? Those who have been on one are just saving up for another trip, right? So I think what has changed, and it's not just in the, millennials or Gen Z, but what has changed is post-pandemic, right? People have started traveling a lot more, right? There was a period of 3-4 months where people did not step out of the house. Domestic tourism, not just in India, but across the world, picked up. And that's when people's habit changed, right? People no longer think of travel as just, an activity they do once in a year, right? In school, we grew up thinking that there is the basic human necessities are food, shelter, clothing. Then health and education got added. I think Wi-Fi got added, but never got officially recognized as then. I think the seventh one is travel, right? Like because people's, when you actually travel, you get to learn a lot more. You experience different cultures, right? And as a traveler, right, the number of options, right, from how you get to a particular area, like to a particular destination, that has increased, right? Accessibility and connectivity, be it air or be it rail, be it roads, that has improved, right? Like uh, governments across the world are investing in their infrastructure, right? So in India, you see roads are coming up, you see new airports are coming up. So that is eventually leading to more economic development and more boost to tourism, right? So that is happening. When we sort of zoom out from India or from local, initiatives that various government bodies and industry players are doing, at a global level, right? Like what I see very clearly happening is that one thing which stops people from traveling is visa, right? Like that is being simplified, right? Visa rules are getting simplified. A lot of processes which were digital are now, sorry, which were offline on paper are now becoming digital, right? And as things like these improve, right, I think this definitely is a golden era where the infrastructure required to travel is improving, and when it comes to permissions and disposable income, that is increasing, right? And finally, when you look at the various options that are coming in, that earlier you would travel only for business or only for leisure, right? Today the lines between what is business and what is leisure on a single trip, that has for sure become blurred, right? Like very often we come across customers who have traveled for 4 days for work and 3 days extended in that particular destination with their family, right? So I think these changes are here to stay, and that's where the next not just 1 decade but the next 3 to 5 decades is like a golden era for travel, right?
And I completely agree. If I look at even examples at home, my parents, never used to travel. But in last few years, they took a trip to Balaji, then they took a trip to Ayodhya. And with, when they take these trips and kind of check out things nearby, now they started planning the trips which are just pure for vacation, which I never imagined, same thing, I see with my in-laws as well. So I think it's definitely, India wants to travel, and as you rightly said, it's not just Gen Z, even definitely all the generations wants to travel now, which is great. But this is, a lot in the Indian context. How do you look at it in a global context? Any examples there? How this is a golden era for the world and not just India?
Yeah, see, rightly said, right, Sanjay. See, so when we look at globally, right, let's take Middle East as a region, for example, right? Uh, Earlier, when we look at travel, right, like when we think of travel, Europe as a destination would come to mind. But over the last years, there's a lot of investment that has happened in the region, right? Like be it Saudi promoting, thinking of people going to Saudi Arabia beyond just Hajj or religious tours, right? So that is evolving, right? There is conversation about visa simplification, just like you have a Schengen visa for traveling to most countries in Europe. There's a conversation of a single visa for GCC countries, right? So when we look at how governments are recognizing that tourism can be an important part of their income, right, of the GDP income for the country, and how it can boost the economies, that is changing, right? Saudi Arabia is a great example, right? There's $1 trillion of investment which is committed by the government to achieve its vision of 2030, right? So we've seen that the model in Dubai has worked, and people now are asking us about different packages, not just for Saudi but for Oman, for Qatar, right? And that is evolving, right? And what this does is it builds a lot of changes or advancement in every region, right? So this is like a simple example that this is the first example that comes to my mind.
Absolutely. And, I think to your examples, what comes to my mind is lot of times, tourism industry gets developed when business travelers start coming to country and they talk about the country. Like, India, only had business travelers at some point, and now there people people from overseas coming for vacation. So I remember 2 years back I went to Saudi for the first time for business travel, and after that probably I went 7 or 8 times already. Nice. And I have seen the new projects and the historical places there, and I'm also thinking about a vacation to Riyadh. So I completely get your point. That's really interesting example. And if something like a single visa for GCC countries like Shenzhen comes, it would become much easier because a single country can provide you a handful of options. And in today's family, 4 people from a family need different things. So combinedly. So that sounds really interesting. So this has been an interesting conversation, Arun, and let's add some spice to it. So we will end our conversation with 5 rapid-fire questions.
Sure.
I'll ask you 5 questions. You just have to answer those in one word, without taking time. Whatever comes first in your mind. Okay. Since you're in travel and you're helping so many travelers to achieve their dreams, what is your favorite destination?
Andamans.
Andaman?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful beaches. I think that every beach got
Havelock Island
different
is
water
the best.
color. Beautiful. I agree. What is your favorite book?
Thinking Fast and Slow.
Okay, interesting. So, tea or coffee?
Water.
Okay, that's good. We all need to be healthy.
I like neither of them, so water.
Yeah, we need to be. I think it's good message. I love tea, but moving on. Are you a early bird or late nighter?
Anybody in the team can tell you I'm a night owl.
Okay. Okay. So last and the most interesting question: what do you love the most? Being in a conference and doing some business and selling, or sitting on your desk, or brainstorming with the team and working on the desk, laptop?
It's this latter one, working on the desk with the team. I think that's what I enjoy the most.
Okay, beautiful. It was lovely to have you, Arun, and
thank you so much, Sanjay.
and I'm sure it will be very insightful. So thank you for all your time. So it has been really an insightful conversation, and I personally learned a lot about how companies can come together, how they can collaborate with each other, even how, and a very unique perspective Arun shared about how to look at competitors. And then his technology journey would be very helpful for pretty much everyone who is into the phase of building technology or making some decisions around the technology. And lastly, of course, we all agree, this is a golden era of travel. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching, and thank you once again, Arun. It is lovely talking to you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. Thank you.
Travel Connections 2025 is happening on 18th of Feb in Delhi. It's just a few days away. Lot of large events happens in India, including SATE, OTM. ITB recently started their India version as well. OTM was just concluded in Mumbai last week. It is an amazing event in terms of people, arrangement and everything. Great job by OTM team. With all these events, there was always one thing missing, as an opportunity for travel tech decision makers, influencers to come together and have a meaningful dialogue, have a meaningful conversation to drive the policies, to drive the future, to drive the meaningful partnerships. Travel Connections 2025 is all about collaboration. Travel Connections 2025 is all about brainstorming. Looking forward to all of you there.